everyone, it's Maria, and welcome to the Breaking Up with Toxicity podcast. Thank you for being with me today. Each week, I will connect with people as they share relatable life experiences. We will talk about and at times challenge reoccurring unhealthy and toxic patterns that keep you from the changes you want to see as you break these unhealthy cycles. So let's get started and see where this show will take us today. Be sure to listen and don't forget to follow so that you never miss an episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Breaking Up with Toxicity. I'm your host, Maria Shkreli, and today we're going to talk about something that rarely gets said out loud. We talk about narcissistic men all the time, but what about narcissistic women? The ones raised by narcissistic mothers who told them control was love, silence was power, and guilt was the way to get both. These women didn't just grow up in toxicity, they actually became it. They swore they'd never be like their mothers. They said things like, I'll be better, softer, and kinder. I'll understand. I'll care more. But instead, they learned just how to hide it better. This episode is for the people who've lived through them and for the women ready to admit they've become one of them. So before we start, what is a narcissistic mother like? Well, a narcissistic mother doesn't always see her daughter as a separate person. She sees her as an extension of herself. Everything becomes about image, performance, and obedience. She's often charming in public, the perfect mom to the outsiders, okay? But behind closed doors, her love is very conditional. Her world runs on approval, dominance, and emotional manipulation. So, for example, she may compete with her daughter for attention or validation. She may even humiliate her when she shows independence. She will praise her when she performs well, then she'll withdraw that affection when she fails. She'll rewrite events to make herself the victim or the hero, depending what it is. She's the mother who says, after everything I've done for you. That's the famous after everything I've done for you. You'll hear that a lot. Every time her child tries to set a boundary, that's what you'll hear. So how does this shape her daughter? Well, growing up with a narcissistic mother programs a daughter to question her worth at the deepest level. So she learns love equals performance. So she must please, fix, or impress in order to be accepted. Boundaries equals rejection. Saying no feels like betrayal. Emotions equal weakness. Vulnerability becomes shameful because it was always weaponized against you. As an adult, she struggles to trust her instincts. So she becomes either the caretaker, always rescuing others to feel useful, or the performer, perfect on the outside while she's falling completely apart on the inside. Many daughters internalize their mother's voice as their own inner critic. That constant whisper that they hear, you're too much, you're not enough, you should be grateful. These patterns repeat. If she doesn't heal, she becomes the very thing that she's escaped. She may become the controlling partner, the emotionally distant parent, or the woman who demands perfection from everyone around her while calling herself healed. Because narcissism isn't always loud, sometimes it's subtle. It's found in manipulation masked as concern or guilt tripping disguised as love. Without self-awareness, the daughter grows up to mirror the emotional chaos that she once actually feared, passing down the same blueprint to her own children. The healing begins with recognition, naming the wound without the shame. A daughter of a narcissistic mother must unlearn the lies that she was raised on. That love must be earned, that peace means disloyalty, that saying no is selfish. She must rebuild her sense of self, and it's piece by piece, learning she's allowed to exist for herself. These women didn't just grow up in toxicity, they actually became it. They swore they'd never be like their mothers. They said, I'll be better, softer, kinder. This episode is for the people who've lived through them and for the women who are ready to admit that they've become them. So we're going to start with story number 1. Story 1 is about Sophia. This is the inherited wound. Sophia grew up with a mother who ruled her father through guilt and silence. Her father was kind, steady, forgiving, everything her mother was not. Sophia saw that her mother made him small, and she hated that. She swore, "I'll never be like her." Years later, she wasn't yelling or slamming doors like her mother, but she was doing the same thing. It was just done quietly. She became the partner who punished with silence, with stonewalling, the one who needed to win every argument, the one who said, "I'm fine," but weaponized distance to make him chase her. She wasn't breaking cycles. What she was doing was rebranding them. A different tone, but same control. Because when you grow up seeing domination as the only version of safety, you will always confuse peace with weakness. Now we're going to move on to story number 2. We're going to talk about Rachel. Rachel, the vanishing act. Rachel's childhood was a masterclass in manipulation. Her mother ruled by crying, blaming and threatening to leave. Her father shrank to survive, and Rachel pitied him. She promised she'd always side with the men who got hurt. But pain doesn't disappear, it actually mutates. When Rachel grew up, she became the same emotional tornado her mother was, only with modern language, though. She didn't scream. What she did was post. She didn't threaten. What she did was she disappeared. One day she packed her things, took their child, blocked her partner, and vanished. A week later, she posted on Instagram, "Healing from a narcissistic, protecting my peace. This game is fun. Isn't it fun to be in control?" And that's when it all clicked. It wasn't healing, it was revenge. Control masquerading as empowerment. Her mother once used guilt to manipulate her father. Rachel used hashtags. Her mother kept her family hostage through fear. Rachel did it through silence. She told herself she was breaking the cycle, but all she did was become the cycle's favorite daughter. Story 3, Lisa, the emotional martyr. Lisa's mother destroyed her father without ever raising her voice. She belittled him, made him question his worth, and turned every problem into his fault. And Lisa watched it all. She swore she'd never do that. But as an adult, Lisa became a master manipulator in a softer disguise. Her partner adored her, calm, reliable, emotionally available, but she couldn't handle stability. Peace made her so restless, so she created chaos in order to feel control. Every argument became a trap. She recorded his reactions, not her provocations, though. She missed that part out. She cried in front of friends and family, told half truths, and made sure she was always the one who tried harder. When the relationship ended, she said, "I did everything for him. He just couldn't handle me." But the truth? He wasn't weak. He just stopped volunteering for her pain. Story number 4, Joe, the devotion trap. Joe was the man everyone admired, the kind of guy who made sure his partner felt safe, cared for, and loved. He worked hard, he cooked, he cleaned, he showed up, he did everything he could to make life easier for her. He made sure her meals were done. He made sure that he took her wherever she needed to go to when she needed to go. He made sure he picked up whatever she needed when she called him. But Joe also carried anxiety. He didn't know how to name it. He drank to calm it. He hustled to hide it. And he did a lot of bad things in addition to that. And when he finally opened up about his drinking and about his inability of how to handle the anxiety because it had gotten so bad and it controlled his life, she listened. But she only listened to collect information. His fears became her future ammunition. He didn't know this. His honesty became her evidence against him. When he started to crumble, she said, "You're supposed to be the man." She told him what to do, who to see, when to speak, and then accused him of being the controlling one. She twisted every effort into fault, every confession into weakness. And when he was finally too tired to keep fighting, she made sure her family, the same people who once loved him, now despised of him. She turned every dinner table into a courtroom, every story into a propaganda. And then she threatened him. If you ever talk to my family again, I'll ruin you. I'll destroy you. If you ever text me, I will file a restraining order against you. And the sickest part, he obeyed because that's how deeply she had broken him. He didn't know what else to do. But what she didn't expect was what came next. Joe got sober. He rebuilt. He faced himself, not to win her back, but to reclaim his own peace. And when she tried to rewrite the story, the truth no longer needed defending because he had finally found it within himself. The cycle of the mother-daughter and then the men they break. When a girl grows up watching her mother tear down her father, she inherits two fears: becoming powerless like him and being hated like her. So she tries to be different, but without awareness, different becomes actually identical. The mother teaches survival through control. The daughter learns that control equals safety. By the time she becomes an adult, she's so fluent in power but incapable of peace. This is how trauma disguises itself. She doesn't scream, she critiques. She doesn't rage, she rewrites. She doesn't hit, she humiliates. She calls it healing, though. Every generation passes down the same unspoken law. You're safe only when you're the one in control. And that's why this keeps repeating. So, what about the men that they break? The men who end up with women like this, they actually aren't weak men. They're empathetic, loyal, and they're very hopeful. They see the broken little girl beneath the chaos and they try to love her into healing, but she doesn't want healing. And she doesn't even know this yet. She wants power. And slowly she drains him mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So everything that she has accused him in the relationship, she's actually the one who is doing this. Until he doubts his own worth, his memory, his sanity, he starts apologizing for things that he actually never did. And he apologizes for things that he can't even remember if he did. He shrinks himself to make her feel secure. When he reacts out of pain, confusion, or desperation, she uses it up as proof that he's the problem, he's unstable, and she'll even record him to use it against him. And society agrees he's the problem. Because we don't question when a woman calls a man abusive. That's the problem in society. It is very easy for a woman to claim a man is abusive. If a man raises his voice to a woman, he's abusive. If a man has IED, he's abusive. If a man splits, he's abusive. There are many reasons, and not to excuse it, why individuals experience anger outlashes. There's three types, and I will make a podcast about this. And then there's anger in itself. When someone is in these type of relationships, they will use those rages against them as abuse. But that is not always abuse. It's part of a diagnosis. It's also dysfunctional, and it can be abusive. This is part of the problem in the world today. We just believe almost anything that we hear. We don't understand it. There's always the two sides to the story. Now, the men who rise in these type of relationships, they get to go to therapy. This will send them to therapy. When a narcissistic woman breaks up with them, it usually will send a man to therapy. And they may even go to therapy before she actually leaves. They rebuild. They stop needing to be the hero in someone else's story, and they start being the author of their own one. So it's actually a good thing. They realize that empathy without boundaries isn't love, it's surrender. They realize that peace doesn't come from fixing chaos, it comes from walking away from it. They stop defending their names to people who only know her version. They start living in the truth instead of proving it. And little by little by little, they come back home to themselves, to a better version of themselves, actually. That's not weakness, that is power. If you're listening and any of this sounds familiar, I want you to pause and ask yourself, 1, do I feel powerful only when someone else feels small? 2, do I call punishment boundaries? 3, do I crave control more than I crave connection? 4, do I repeat what hurt me and call it healing? 5. Am I becoming the very person I swore I'd never be? You can break this cycle, but only if you face your reflection without justification. I'm sorry, those questions were geared towards women. Now, a challenge for the men. You are not weak because you were abused. You are not pathetic because you stayed. You are not broken because you loved someone who couldn't love you back. Ask yourself the following questions. Why do I think love has to hurt? 2. Who taught me to earn affection instead of receive it? 3. Why do I call chaos chemistry? 4. What part of me still believes being needed is more important than being respected? And 5. And what would my life look like if I stopped apologizing for my softness? Your sensitivity is not your flaw. It's your superpower, actually. You just gave it to the wrong person. We need to stop pretending society actually cares about male victims because it doesn't, at least not yet. We romanticize women's pain and, and ridicule men's. We applaud her for healing. Yay, rah, rah, she's destroying someone else's life. And we shame him for breaking down after surviving it. When a woman cries, she's brave. When a man cries, he's weak. When a woman sets boundaries, boo, she's empowered. When a man does it, he's controlling. We've created a culture that glamorizes women's cruelty as a strength and labels men's pain as pathetic. And that's not empowerment, that's abuse. It's actually abuse in designer packaging. That's what that is. We tell men, be strong, but never be safe. We tell them, man up, but never speak up. And then we wonder why suicide rates keep on climbing. Here's the truth. Emotional abuse doesn't care about gender at all. It doesn't. It goes both ways. Manipulation doesn't discriminate, and empathy shouldn't either. To every man that's been silenced, shamed, or mocked for his pain, I see you. I see you all the time. You're sitting in my office trying to do better, trying to understand and navigate this. And you have so many more challenges than a woman does. And the reason is because you're a man. You didn't imagine it. You weren't too sensitive. You weren't just with someone who couldn't handle your depth. And to the women repeating their mother's cruelty under the mask of boundaries and self-worth, you can do better if you want. Because the real strength doesn't come from breaking men. It comes from facing the parts of yourself that still need to control them. So let's stop glorifying dysfunction, abuse, and toxicity. Stop weaponizing feminism. Stop laughing at men's trauma and calling it karma. It's not funny. Healing isn't gendered. Accountability isn't optional. And empathy doesn't belong to a woman alone. True power is peace, not control. True love is freedom, not fear. And the ones who rise from this mess, both men and women, will be the ones brave enough to say, it ends with me. Because breaking cycles isn't just about who hurt you, it's about who you refuse to become. Every generation has its story. The mothers who controlled, the daughters who repeated, the men who broke in silence, and the few who finally stood up and said, no more, that's it. If this episode stirred something in you, I want you just to sit with it. Don't rush to fix it. Don't rush to blame anyone. Just sit with the truth of what you've tolerated, what you've repeated, and what you're finally ready to release. Healing doesn't happen when you get even. It happens when you get honest, when you stop performing pain and start transforming it. And if you're listening to this right now, maybe this is your moment to stop carrying your family's dysfunction, to stop carrying their toxicity, and to stop carrying their abuse, your partner's projections, or society's shame. It's your moment to say, I'm choosing peace over proving, because peace isn't passive. Peace is actually power. And sometimes the strongest thing that you're ever going to do is to walk away without making them understand. That is power. Until next time, be bold, be honest, and remember, you can't heal what you keep pretending doesn't hurt. Love without accountability isn't love. And sometimes the wrong person breaking you is what finally teaches you how to build yourself back up.